Okay, so we had a catastrophic clutch failure, and I had a feeling I knew what it was, but I want to run down what happened and what we're replacing and why. So we're going to start from the inside of the transmission out, so you can kind of see what we're doing. The first thing is the pilot bearing. This is where the drive shaft goes in to the actual flywheel. The originals had an actual bearing, and you can't see this because we've jockeyed it up with, maybe you can see it there, there's some spindles in there. We had to use breadcrumbs to actually pound this out from the outside, and it worked. It took about 5 minutes. It was actually pretty cool. We're replacing that with a solid bushing, and we're doing that because the bearings inside here are sealed, which is great, but once they fail, then it causes the splined shaft to rotate inside the cavity of the this hole right here, and it'll cause vibration when you're running. So we're going to replace it with the bushing. Hopefully that'll eliminate that. And I've got some really good commentary online on forums that the bushing replacement, and in talking with folks that I know about these things, that the bushing replacement is better. So from the bushing to the actual front of the clutch, you've got, well, we're going to do a full clutch replacement because that we're in there anyway. We're going to do that. That wasn't as bad, but there was obvious signs of wear, and we'll explain that in a minute. So from the clutch, you actually have what's the throwout bearing. This is a new throwout bearing. Okay, this is what engages the clutch. So when you push this in, well, I guess like faces this way. So when you push this against the clutch, it disengages, and then the fork and the clutch pedal will actually work back and forth along that shaft. When we pulled the shaft out, this is what we got. So the throwout bearing was completely deteriorated, just got absolutely destroyed into pieces, and I'm surprised it was even able to work. But somehow, and obviously it was on its last leg, and who knows how long it had been like this before I started feeling the problems. So this is going to make a significant impact on how the shifting goes and how that works. Well, why did that happen? Well, because all this does is ride along the shaft. That's all it does, is go back and forth. Well, what happens is the shift fork gets messed up, and we wound up getting a new shift fork for a couple of reasons. So here's two of them. This is the new one, obviously. This is the old one, and they look the same. You know, all the points are right on line with each other. Everything's fine. But if you'll notice, these right here show significant signs of wear because of where it was rubbing on that bearing. The new one doesn't. See? And what we also noticed was on the back side. If you can tell, or if you can see, there's a difference here where there's a huge cutout, basically, where you can see metal's been rubbing on metal. And then here on the new one, there's none of that. There's a cavity inside there, like a dimple, but where this one used to have a dimple, it's been so chewed out that it's actually, I don't know if you can get a close enough shot of this, but it's actually cracked the outer side of it. So it's pushed that metal so far out that it can't even do anything. Why did that happen? Well, come to find out, the original pivot that these go onto is designed to do this. So this is a pivot ball. It goes on the back of the transmission, goes inside there, and this thing, it allows it to move back and forth. The bearing is right here. Clutch pedal pushes the slave cylinder here. So it just works on a pivot like that. Well, what happened is this piece wound up breaking off or getting destroyed. And what you don't see is there's actually a grease fitting that goes to this line, and it sends grease up and through here to keep that greased. Well, if that's not maintained, metal on metal just constantly erodes away. So as a comparison, new versus old, you can kind of see the difference between the two.
Yeah.
And the old shaft probably was got impacted, or maybe there was something wrong with it. Maybe someone drove a screw in there to hold this on. Who knows? Who knows what happened over time? But essentially, the pivot point got destroyed, just like two bones without cartilage. and it just wound up eating away at that clutch fork. And then when it did that, it wound up causing all this damage and destruction to happen inside. Well, why did that happen also is because the diagram in the book actually shows this piece connected to this piece with this bushing on the outside and a little tiny retainer clip, just a little tiny spring clip, you can see that goes on top of there, and it just pushes on and keeps that in place. That way it limits the movement and doesn't allow it to go out. It doesn't allow that clutch fork to slip past a certain point. And if it does, there's just enough spring pressure to relieve it to where it doesn't destroy this piece. This is as far as I can tell. Problem is, when you get one of these, you don't get these. So these clips are extremely valuable for keeping that same system going, to be able to grease that and keep it maintained and lasting long. There's two of them in here. I bought the GMC dealer out. The part number, you can see it just so you have it. Good luck finding one. But if you can, that's what you need to do to make sure that you have at least this one. The retaining clip, I don't have the part number for that because I was able to retain it. Obviously, it's just a piece of plastic. And if it came down to it, you might be able to work something different out, but in a pinch. We're doing our best to make sure that we get as back to factory as possible. And I think overall, this is going to make a significant improvement in drivability and performance. Sweet.